Hey everyone. Um, let's see. I'm gonna wait for anyone to see if people are gonna hop on. And maybe if you're on, please let me know that you can hear me okay and see me okay, and that, my lips are matching the audio. If anything is ever funky, just type in the comments and let me know. So I should be able to see if anybody's on, and maybe I'll just repeat that to make sure. So happy Monday. I hope you all had a great weekend and that your Halloween was fun. If you have kids, hopefully they still got to get out into the neighborhood in some capacity so that they could go trick or treating or at least, get into costumes and have some fun. I think people got pretty creative, including some of the adults. So that was really fun to see. Okay, I'm going to give it a few more moments till we get into it. And I do want to let you know in the meantime that I'll be hosting another masterclass next Tuesday, November 10th at 7 o'clock. So if you want to learn more about things that we've been talking about, but even more specifically, the common reasons why so many women have trouble, improving their migraines, and ways that you can get real results, real long-lasting results, and more migraine-free days so that you can actually get back to, a joyful life and having more energy so you can do the things you want to. Please type masterclass in the comments or send me a private message and I'll send you a link to register. So anyone watching, let me know that you can hear me okay and see me okay. I'm going to be starting out with something that you are likely already familiar with if you've been following me, because I've talked about it before, but it's an important concept to understand. So for new members, I'm going to be repeating it. And I think that in general, everyone can benefit from hearing it again. So we know there's a genetic component to migraine, but even if we know we're predisposed to migraines because we have relatives that have them, we know that it runs in the family kind of thing, it doesn't necessarily mean that we're destined to experience attacks as frequently as we are, or even ever, actually. So this is because of something called epigenetics. So it's when our genes can be influenced by the environment that surrounds them. Things like food, lifestyle, and mindset, they all play a really big role in whether or not those genes get turned on or off, whether or not we actually have these migraine attacks. So I can see somebody's watching. Please let me know in the comments if you can hear me and see me okay. My lips match the audio, that kind of thing. Some funny things have been happening lately. So yeah, I think we're all aware that things inside and outside of the body can act as a trigger for our migraine attacks. And, even though we may blame the last thing that we were exposed to or that we ate prior to getting our migraine, it's more about an accumulation of triggers and stressors that matters. So it's actually, more of a matter of being like the last thing that broke the straw that broke the camel's back. So that overflowing bucket theory that I've explained before is another way to look at it. So you're filling your bucket up with stressors, and that's the water filling the bucket up. And then at a certain point, you're at the top of the bucket, and then you dump some more in, and the water overflows. So what it really does come down to is, number one, being aware of our stressors first, and that includes internal ones, which is maybe the kind that we're not so aware of. Internal imbalances, which we will be getting into today. Number two is limiting exposure to the stressors and triggers that we do have control over. And then number three is raising our resilience. And that can be done in a number of ways related to all the things I mentioned, like food and lifestyle and mindset and our thought patterns. So all of this helps us to prevent the triggers that we cannot control from bringing on a migraine attack, which is pretty cool when you think about it. Okay, great. So today I'll be talking about hormone-related migraine specifically because you voted for it. The, pretty high number of you voted for this topic, and I know that just in speaking with a lot of you and with the women that I've encountered and my clients, definitely hormone-related migraines, whether it's the only type of migraine they get or just one of the types they get, it's a pretty common problem, and something that a lot of women feel that they have no control over. So let me know in the comments if you feel this way too. If you feel like, hormone related migraines are just something you have to live with and that you'll never be able to deal with those ones. So what you'll see though, what you'll hear from me today is that it's actually hormonal imbalances and or having a low migraine threshold that's creating issues for most people around this type of migraine. So it's a false belief that we have that if we get migraines related to our cycles, nothing can be done. And, other than taking some kind of hormone therapy or, when we see our doctors, they tell us that there are things we can do, but it's usually medication related or I'm going on some kind of, hormone therapy or, birth control pill or something. So menstrual migraines, they were actually the final type of migraine attack that I was able to overcome for myself. And I first eliminated all of those seemingly, sporadic or random migraines I get throughout the month. And then these migraines that were related to my cycle, they were the ones I kind of continued to keep getting for a while. And sometimes it was with my period, sometimes it was with ovulation, but it was very clearly happening at the same time every month for a consecutive number of months, and there seemed to be nothing that I could do to kind of get away from that. And if you get this kind of migraine, you know that they're the worst kind. The pain is more intense. They last longer. They are harder to manage with medication, and that is what, even though I was not getting that many anymore, because it was just at this time of the month, they were awful enough that I wanted to keep digging into it. And so when I dug into the why of it and started learning about hormones and knowing my specific situation, I was able to then find ways to almost completely eliminate them too. I say almost because I still am susceptible to that type of migraine. I'm human. Sometimes I stop doing things that I know I should be doing that affect my migraine threshold. And so when my migraine threshold is not high, when it's being lowered, then the hormone fluctuations at those times of month are more likely to trigger an attack for me still. The nice thing is though that if ever I do still get a migraine around that time, they're more mild and they're more manageable with using natural approaches. I don't need to use the medications anymore. So I'm going to start this out with a definition of hormones. I'm going to keep it high level and basic. And so you might know these things already. Maybe it's new to you, but I think it's important to kind of understand what hormones are and how they work before we jump into, tips or trying something to manage our hormones. So basically, hormones are chemical messengers, and they live in the blood, they travel through the blood, they regulate all systems in the body. Their job is to maintain our internal balance. And they're made in many places throughout the body, including the ovaries, the adrenal glands, which sit at the top of your kidneys, our thyroid, our pancreas, and our hypothalamus in the brain. So those are just a few of the places that hormones get produced. And, we tend to think of the sex hormones when we think of hormones. We think of estrogen and progesterone and testosterone. And while they may be the ones that are most involved with those hormonal migraines, the ones related to our cycle, other hormones are also influencing their function and balance. So here are a few other types of hormones that may sound familiar to you. Insulin is one, and that's the one that helps to get sugar out of your blood and into your cells. There's also cortisol, which is involved in our sleep cycles and also involved in the stress response with noradrenaline and adrenaline. We have ghrelin, which is our hunger hormone. It signals when our brain telling it that we need to eat. And leptin, which signals that we're full, so the satiety hormone. And our thyroid hormones regulate the body's metabolic rate and, things like it controls, heart, muscle, and digestive function, and as well as brain development and then also bone maintenance. So the thyroid hormones are very important for women and for everybody, and it's our metabolism. So we know when there's issues with thyroid, things either slow down or speed up depending on our issue. So if you know that you get migraines related to your menstrual cycle in particular, or if you're in perimenopause or menopause, and you find that your migraines are actually, they've gotten worse, then this one is definitely for you. So the most common type of hormonal migraine is premenstrual. So that's when you have an attack in the days leading up to the start of your period. But whenever hormones are fluctuating throughout your cycle, these are the times where migraine is more likely to be triggered. So other common times are during menstruation, so day 1 to 5 of your cycle, or at ovulation, which is typically around it's in the middle of your cycle, usually around day 14 to 17 kind of thing. Now in perimenopause, our hormones are all over the place. So you could be getting migraines whenever. They can happen unpredictably, and that's what's so hard about it. Then in menopause, even if your hormones are lower overall, I've heard women say, like, I have no hormones left, and that's not true. You have hormones, they're happening they're at lower levels, and the problem is more that you don't have the right ratios of those hormones. So that's when you start to see problems. So we can ask the question, what reason might there be for getting migraines due to these natural body processes? And, because hormones are fluctuating all the time, they're supposed to be going up and down, and they're supposed to be changing. But today I'll cover some of the top reasons. So they include, estrogen dominance, stress, and blood sugar. So those are the 3 I'll be talking about today. So let me know in the comments whether you're watching live. I see that we have one watching. If you're watching live or the replay, let me know if you suspect that you get hormonal migraines, and maybe even why you suspect that you are getting them. So what are your symptoms, or is it because of the timing of them, or the intensity? So starting with estrogen dominance, this is a type of hormone imbalance that can happen for whether you're a man or a woman, and at any stage in life really, but it is more common during menopause and perimenopause. So for some women, it's more extreme, and that makes it more likely to trigger migraines for them. And what estrogen dominance is an imbalance between 2 different hormones, estrogen and progesterone. So in this case, whether you have too much estrogen or normal levels of estrogen, or even deficient, if you're deficient in estrogen, if we have too little progesterone, then the balance is out, and that is considered to be estrogen dominance. So it is the ratio between these 2 hormones that matters, and when estrogen dominates, that's when we see symptoms, and the symptoms can include fatigue, breast swelling or tenderness, irregular periods, bloating, weight gain, especially around the middle, and uterine fibroids. We might see mood swings, anxiety, depression. We have sleep problems, and you might experience insomnia and even night sweats, and of course, migraine headaches. So some of the common reasons for estrogen dominance includes exposure to toxins. You may have heard of xenoestrogens, and these are hormone disruptors, and they're found in cleaning products in our house, products that we put on our body, personal care products, and they can even be found in our water now, because of the plastics and all these contaminants from the products we use getting into our water. Another reason for estrogen dominance is being constipated. And not everybody knows that they're constipated because of, the different symptoms we might get that indicate it. So let's just say if you're not going at least 1 to 3 times per day, there's a high chance that you are experiencing this. And what happens is that your body can actually, it has a hard time eliminating the estrogen, because the extra estrogen in our body gets eliminated in that way through our digestive system, through our colon. And if we're constipated, then it's not happening well, and it's also giving the chance for our body to reabsorb the estrogen. Another reason is current or past use of hormone replacement therapies or oral contraceptives. And another reason is high stress. So because progesterone actually gets used to produce our stress hormones. If we're constantly in a high stress state, then our progesterone can get depleted, and that creates the imbalance between estrogen and progesterone. So speaking of stress, and most women cite stress as a major trigger for their migraines. Here's why. We can also call them, hormonal migraines in a way, because when we feel stressed or threatened in some way, our brain actually initiates a flood of hormones and a cascade of reactions. And this is what we call the stress response, or fight or flight. And it makes us more susceptible to triggers when this happens. I've explained this before, but I know that, again, it's an important one. But it's called fight or flight because with the release of adrenaline and noradrenaline and cortisol, that prompts us to either stay and fight or run away. So all bodily systems are working at this point to keep us alive. Everything is happening so that we can get away from the threat or fight off the threat. So back in the day, this threat, the reason that this mechanism in our body is the way it is because back in the day, we actually had to be running away or fighting our threats. It was about the tiger or that large animal that was out to get us. We literally had to run away. But over time, that response remains in our body. And when our brain sends that signal, whether it's a real threat or not, our body reacts. So our brain just hasn't evolved to distinguish the difference between an actual real physical threat where we have to have, sugar rushing to our muscles and like energy to fight or run or not. So the reason that this is a problem is when we're in this stressed state, our heart rate and our blood pressure increases and, our blood sugar rises so that we can get, the sugar can get to our muscles so that we can fight or run. And that contributes to blood sugar imbalances. Our digestive processes actually slow because in times of stress, when we need to be running away, then our body needs to redirect resources. So it can't be digesting food, it needs to be doing other things. When stress is short-lived, we might experience a migraine due to the flood of hormones, or once that stress is over, when the hormone levels come back down, that's another fluctuation, right? And a more extreme one. So that's when we can also be having that let down migraine, that migraine that comes when, we're finally able to relax and go on vacation, or when the weekend comes and we unfortunately get a migraine that kind of ruins it for us. So let me know in the comments if you've experienced this, if anyone feels like they get that type of migraine, the letdown migraine, and maybe you're linking it now to the stress that you feel during the week or when you're in your day-to-day. So on the flip side, if we have chronic stress, that chronic stress and all of the things that are happening in the stress response can actually wear out and deplete our hormones. And that leads to imbalances and chronic migraine. And when chronic stress depletes estrogen in particular, well, when estrogen levels come down, so does serotonin, that happy hormone, happy neurotransmitters. So when serotonin levels decline, our anxiety goes up and depression goes up. And also it can bring on migraine attacks when serotonin levels dip. So this is the reason that techniques that turn off the stress response and strategies that raise our migraine threshold are so important. We need a way so that we can shut that down so that we can prevent a progression to chronic migraine as well, because if we're chronically stressed and we're chronically in that state, unfortunately, it can bring us to a place where we start getting more and more and more migraines. So this is why I am so passionate about helping people to do this, and the reasons why I developed the migraine resilience method in the first place, to be a step-by-step process that tells you what to focus on, tells you where to put your energy and attention, because we know that you don't have an abundance of it all the time necessarily because of everything you have to go through. So it's about layering things on and, keeping you out of overwhelm, but also getting great results by the end of 12 weeks. So, no one is expected to already know this stuff. I've been reading about health all my life. I've been learning about it, but it wasn't until I went to school for it and I became intentional in my, research into migraine specifically, that I was able to figure out what to do to succeed in my own journey. And, I did this legwork so that others don't have to. If you don't love this stuff like I do, if you're not keen about it, you don't have to know everything. You have to know some. You have to understand how things work in the body and all of that. But, I distilled it all down to only the need to know stuff and only the steps that, you need to be taking first, second, third, and it's tailored for migraine. So, with the functional lens that I put on it, this is what makes it really so beneficial for everybody. So, one part of the stress piece is to use relaxation techniques. I did share, it's about finding what works for you, absolutely. But one really easy one that works for most people, at least to some degree, and it does take practice. It takes applying it over and over and over before you might see it start to have more effectiveness for you. But it's actually, deep breathing exercises and breathing techniques. So I shared an exercise in the live that I did about stress, and that was called box breathing. So let me know when you're watching, if you're watching the replay or if you're watching live, let me know if you've tried this box breathing exercise, if you use it, and maybe I will post a link to that live in the comments at the end, and you can give it a thumbs up if you plan to watch it, or if you did watch it even. All right, so that was stress. And I mentioned that in the stress response, our blood sugar rises. So that is actually the effect of cortisol pulling sugar out from places where it's stored in the body, pulling it into the blood so that insulin can then get it into the muscles so that we can, fight or flee, run away from that tiger. Now, when we eat sugar or carbohydrates, the same thing happens. Sugar, or glucose, we call it. It's the simplest form is called glucose. That gets into the bloodstream, and in this case, though, it's from our digestive system. It's coming in through our food, and as with the stress response, insulin gets released to get the sugar into your cells so that it can be turned into energy, so that you can run from the tiger or fight the tiger. This is where eating too many refined carbs or sugar causes the rapid spikes in blood sugar that we don't necessarily want. We don't want those rapid spikes, because what happens is that it's followed by a steep decline again in blood sugar. As the insulin takes the blood sugar goes up really fast, the insulin has to rush it into our cells, and then that mechanism of having the blood sugar leaving the blood really fast, the sugar leaving the blood really fast, makes us then crash. And that's when we experience, the craving for carbs again, because our blood sugar is super low. So when you have rapid spikes and dips, regardless of whether it's being caused by stress or something you ate, we end up with blood sugar imbalance. So this is another type of, hormonal imbalance or imbalance that we don't want in the body that will affect us. So, when we have these I'm going to share some of the symptoms of blood sugar imbalance so you can recognize it for yourself. So if you're not sure whether you have blood sugar problems or not, try to think of, first of all, you can have an idea if you know that you're eating a lot of, refined carbs and that kind of thing, and not eating a lot of fat or proteins with it. If you're eating, really frequently throughout the day, your blood sugar could be kept high, so that could be a problem. And, if you're finding that you're tired, you have extreme fatigue, especially at certain points in the day, if you get headaches, if you have cravings, and I'm talking regular headaches, not the migraine type headache, but even if you get headaches, it could be an issue with blood sugar. If you're getting cravings, especially for, as I mentioned, those refined carbs, and also, sugar and caffeine, because you need an energy pick-me-up, then that can indicate blood sugar imbalances and mood swings. If you're finding yourself fluctuating from, feeling really, really happy and energetic and optimistic, and then you kind of go to the extreme the other way where you're feeling really irritable. So we've talked about how estrogen dominance, stress, and blood sugar can create hormone imbalances that affect migraine. I'm going to actually end it here today, and I'll do a part 2 in the coming days, which I hope you'll tune into because I'll be talking about what may be the most important piece to this puzzle. I'll be providing some steps that you can take to start addressing these things as well. And I will, though, leave you with one suggestion to get started with, and that's to start tracking. If you haven't already started tracking your cycle and tracking your migraines in relation to your cycle, that is something that you can start doing. And I personally use the app called Flow, F-L-O. And doing this will help you identify any patterns in your hormonal migraines. It'll allow you to, manage as many triggers as you can in the week, especially leading up to the time where you would normally get a migraine. That can really help. That can go a long way to start with. And, addressing things or adjusting, I should say, certain things to your energy levels, because we have different levels of energy throughout our cycle. And, when our energy is more low, we need to be adjusting how we're exercising and even what we're eating and what kind of stress we're maybe inviting in or activities we're doing that we know cause us stress normally. We might want to be scaling back on that at certain points in time during the month. Just where we have control, we can do something. In this case, if we track and if we know what's to come and when we normally would have fluctuations in our hormones and have those migraines. So that is it for today. I'll remind you once again to definitely let me know if you're interested in attending the masterclass next Tuesday. And as I said, I can send you that link if you comment masterclass or if you private message me in Facebook Messenger. I can set you up with the link and you can register for it. So I hope you enjoy the rest of your Monday, and we'll talk again soon. Bye.